Don't forget, ko-fi.com/stopwritingalone is a real simple way to show your support for what's going on here week after week. Hi, everyone. This is Nicole Rivera, and this is the Stop Writing Alone podcast for writers who are looking for their writing community. I know you want to find readers for your work, but I think your first step is to connect with other writers. That's what we're going to do here at the Stop Writing Alone podcast. We'll do writing prompts and other writing group activities, discover online writing communities, learn how to find local writing groups, or how to make your own. Join us as we explore, learn, and write. Hi, everyone. This is Nicole Rivera, and you're listening to the Stop Writing Alone podcast. So chances are, if you're listening to this podcast, you probably consider yourself somewhat of a word nerd. But is grammar your comfort zone, or is that one of the things that you're like, I'm going to need to hire an editor? If you are struggling in any way with any level of grammar, if you enjoy grammar, if you are a stickler for all the little rules and are looking for a friendly way to sort of convey them to friends who may need a hand, then you are going to want to connect with this week's guest. Curtis Honeycutt is the grammar guy. He has a column in a number of local newspapers, and he's done the work, as he'll explain in a moment, of putting together all of his humorous explanations for all these grammar rules that we need to know and love into one lovely book that is going to be available on May 1st. So tomorrow, if you're listening to this podcast, the day that it goes live. And the book is Good Grammar is the Life of the Party, Tips for a Wildly Successful Life. I love this book. I love the way he enters into each rule and really just brings his own funny stories to everything that he is sharing with us. So I'm going to give you over to the interview so that you can listen to where he got his start, where this love of grammar came from, how you can be a good friend and still share grammar rules with all the people that you love, and how to get your hands on this book and to support Curtis in his great launch this weekend. So here we go. Hey, everybody, it's me, Nicole, and we're here at the Stop Writing Alone podcast. And this week I have the pleasure of bringing to you Curtis Honeycutt, grammar guy, although he might want to be a grammar guru, word nerd. We'll talk to him about that and what he has coming up. So, Curtis, can you please give a brief introduction to the people in the Stop Writing Alone community? Who is this grammar guy?
Yes, thank you, Nicole. I am thrilled to be talking to you today. My name is Curtis Honeycutt, and I write a weekly humor column called Grammar Guy that appears in about 30 newspapers around the country. And out of that has come lots of content, all kind of these bite-sized grammar lessons, word usage, punctuation, things like that. So at a certain point, I said, well, I'm onto something here. I would like to write a book. So I rearranged all of my columns, got rid of the ones that I didn't like anymore, wrote a bunch of new stuff, added some intros and outros and random life things that have happened in my life, and I segue into grammar from there. And I threw it all into a book called Good Grammar is the Life of the Party, Tips for a Wildly Successful Life. And I think it's great in that everyone should consider reading it.
Let me just say, you sold me in, I think it was in the introduction, when you used footnotes as like an aside, a humorous aside. I used to be a teacher, and I literally bought in on a statistics textbook because of their use of footnotes. This is like one of my things. As soon as I read your funny footnote, I'm like, Curtis, is my guy. This is amazing.
Yeah, I think I was writing about the word nozzle, and how. So I'm a dad in my mid 30s, and so certain like little home improvement things do make my life a little better. And so we had recently replaced the nozzle on our kitchen sink, and
Right.
it really, the water pressure was just great after that, and it just made my life, that much better. And in the same way, I
Yes.
feel like good grammar can make people's life just that much better. So anyway, the more you look at a word, the more it just looks like total nonsense. So as I was typing the word nozzle, I was just like, man, nozzle, is that even a word? And so the more I say it, the more that it sounds made up. So sometimes I
Right.
just say nozzle.
Absolutely hilarious. And water pressure is like one of the unsung heroes. So again, it
Gotta
was the
have it, man.
story, the footnote, everything. I was like, Curtis and I see eye to eye here. So Curtis, let's take it back a bit. Where did your love of grammar begin? Like, how did this start? Were you always, like back in the 6th grade, I had a teacher that had us like diagramming sentences, and I just thought that was cool looking, but I never really like dove in much further than that. But I can't see a prepositional phrase without seeing it like dangling from a line.
Totally.
So I'm just
Totally.
just wondering how early on did you start to see the joys of grammar and how and then the humor in it. It's great.
Oh man, I've always enjoyed writing, and I'll say my favorite teachers in high school were always my English teachers. In fact, I dedicated the book to them because
Mm.
I just, for some reason, they made a great impression on me. So I've always enjoyed writing. In fact, when I went to college, because of the impact my teachers had on me, I was an English major for all of one semester, which I think definitely definitely qualifies me to teach other people about grammar. Um, but I've just always enjoyed writing, whether it's copywriting for a random contract client or script writing or things like that. And so my local paper a few years ago had a call out from the editor, and they said, we're looking for someone to write a grammar column. And I said, you know what? I
Oh.
like grammar, and I think I'm pretty good at it. I don't think I know the reasons behind it. But basically, the call out was send us in an audition column, basically. And so I decided, you know what? I think a lot of people are going to be interested in this. There are a lot of word nerds out there. And so I need to write about grammar in a way that no one else would. So it needs to be, instead of judgmental, it needs to be positive. And, the idea that good grammar can make everyone's life better, not just one person's life. And we don't need to be jerks about it. And it would help if it was funny. And so I put together a sample column, and sent it into my editor. And from all the entries, they picked mine, and they said, "Here you go. Your column is called Grammar Guy." And so from there, I connected with other newspapers around Indiana, and then more broadly around the country. And so, not that the newspaper industry is doing well right now, but
Yeah.
I'm proud. I'm proud to be a columnist. I love newspaper people, and I think everyone should subscribe to their local newspaper, especially now, where local news is really important.
Yeah, that I mean, for me personally, that is where I keep going. And I recognized that recently. I'm like, wow, that is the first place that I want to go for all my news about this is my local paper. And I haven't even recognized in the past, especially here in New York, it's like, oh, I have the New York Times, I have the New York Post, I have all the, these almost global papers but I've been going to my very local Staten Island Advance for all the things. And I'm like, this
There you
is my
go.
unsung
'Cause,
hero that I keep forgetting about.
yeah, because the Times still does have New York stuff. It's got stuff what's going
Absolutely.
on in New York City. But when it comes down to it, you want to know, kind of on a neighbor by neighborhood basis,
Yeah.
what's happening, especially right now.
Yeah, and they are also the papers that are going to care about your story. So it's, also it's what's going on in my neighborhood, what is going to affect me so directly. But this is just going back to your bravery of going after this call. I love this. Were you writing on the regular before that, like doing sort of freelance stuff, and you said, let me just throw my hat into this one also? Or was that sort of your call out to say, maybe I should be writing in the papers as well?
I had been doing some freelance stuff, but nothing consistent. So it was really the kick in the pants that I needed to go for it. I think it's nice to have an assignment and it's nice to have a deadline, and those two things really motivate me to get writing done. And so every Monday morning I've got a deadline to send it to all my editors now, and
Right.
so that means you better believe Sunday night I'm I'm writing, and
Right.
whether or not inspiration strikes, it's due the next morning, and so you got to pull it out, Um, yeah, so it was my driver for sure. And I'll say one thing: if there are other people who are writers, I think the thing that ultimately made it stand out to the editor and the team at my local paper was the fact that I wrote it the way that no one else is going to write it. So,
Yeah.
um, you, Nicole, if you're writing, um, we've read about your subject before, whatever you're writing, but we've read about grammar before. So how are you
Right.
going to write it differently than anyone else has written it before? What's your unique take on it? And so that's what people want to read. They don't want to read another version of Harry Potter or whatever.
Yeah.
Although Harry Potter's very good, but someone else has already written that. So you do your thing.
Absolutely. I mean, and I think that goes back to, like you said, you had your one semester of the English major. This you are you have a voice, you're coming at this in a way that probably most people that are answering a submission call for grammar are not. They're probably like, steeped in it and want to get very technical with everything. And you are coming at it from an everyman sort of perspective of like,
Well,
yeah,
and I appreciate that, but every once in a while I can get my nerd glasses on, and we can get very technical and granular, and
for
you know,
sure.
sometimes you just need to go there and you need to get into the nitty gritty details. But I like to um, couch that in some humor so that people will pay attention.
Yeah, it is grammar after all. It's unavoidable. you can't you can't go all in and not nerd out every now and again. But like, yeah, exactly like you said, to have that humor and everything. It's really just so wonderful. Your examples, your sentence examples of how things play out are incredibly useful. But then the stories that lead up to them and take us out of them are just hilarious. So it's really really great. And one of the notes that you have in the book, and I'm sure you probably address it in your column as well, is to sort of not be a snob about it. So has there have you had any sort of grammar snob interactions, and and what is your advice to anyone on how to sort of like shake that judgmental bit off?
Yeah,
um
so that's great. So just so you know, as I say this, you've got to look at the man in the mirror, as Michael Jackson
right.
has told us to do. And so when I'm saying this, I'm also talking to myself. But basically, here's my deal on that: is that you can correct people's grammar in public, or you can have friends, but you can't have both. So I think there's a time and a place. If your friend makes an egregious grammar error at a party or whatever, um, in that same conversation is not the time to say you
Right.
ended your sentence in a preposition. How dare you? But if you care about that friend and you think that correcting them would help them, take them aside one on one and just say, hey, that sentence in a preposition there. Here's why you shouldn't do that. And in a
Right.
loving, caring way, just don't be a jerk about it. In fact, I've created a new term since I've written the book, because the book has been written and just been in editing and formatting and stuff like that. But you know about mansplaining, I'm sure you do. I don't
Oh
need to
yeah.
mansplain to you what mansplaining means, because that would be ironic. But
Be
so I
fun.
coined a new term called gramsplaining,
Gram
basically where
splaining.
you condescendingly correct someone's grammar in in public. And
That's perfect. Yeah.
no one needs that. And it's, because we want to be right and we want to be accurate, we want to share our knowledge with other people on how to be accurate. And I think that comes from a good place, but it comes across as, you're being a total jerk. So um, there's a time and a place for colloquial language or slang. There's a time and a place for formal language as well. So um, you're not going to wear a tuxedo to a tailgate party. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
Right.
so
Oh my
you shouldn't have to be all buttoned up and proper all the time. But at the same time, you're not going to wear, flip flops to a job interview. So
God. This is
unless you're, unless you want to be a lifeguard.
right. Right. Dress for what is it? Dress for the job you want. Not
Yeah,
flip
exactly.
flops are good for the lifeguard job. So I love and I know this isn't in the book, but it's like one of your recent columns out there. One of the things that I love that you do is not just the humor, but also like connecting it to today. And so you were just recently wrote about the how did you put it? This is why it made me laugh so much. That the spaces between sentences and how we're not doing social distancing between our sentences anymore.
Oh, so this is actually something. So I didn't write this. I found this article the other day on.
Okay.
I think it was mental floss, but it was my commentary that probably made you
Yeah,
chuckle a
that's
little bit, which means that
definitely
I'm.
because what it was definitely your writing that I was reading. So that's funny. Okay, go ahead.
So apparently, Microsoft Office is now flagging double spaces between sentence as an error.
Oh boy.
So I do talk in the book about single spacing versus double spacing,
Right.
and how people who used to learn on typewriters, we got into monospace fonts and things like that, which you don't need to get into right now. But um, the new way to do it that is accurate, technically now according to Microsoft Office, is one space after the end of a sentence. But I said apparently Microsoft stopped encouraging social distancing between sentences,
Yes.
and I fully endorse that.
That's fantastic. But that is your humor. That's the thing is like they're just talking about spaces and you're bringing it into the social distancing. Perfect. Perfect. So I see, Curtis, that you've been doing freelance. The current, if I understand that correctly, that's like a bunch of is that a bunch of newspapers that sort of
Yeah,
are
it's a series of
connected?
newspapers. Yeah, it's a series of local newspapers on the northern suburbs of Indianapolis. So that's where I got my start. It's a series of 6 small newspapers.
Cool. So you answered the call to but that was basically you were answering to the current. And
Yeah, yeah.
oh,
So
cool.
that put me in six suburbs and 6 towns around Indianapolis, which is pretty good exposure. And then I said, you know what? Why don't I just pitch this to a couple other editors? And the worst they can say is no, because I don't know them, right? So
Right.
a couple other newspapers picked me up, and you just have to, figure out what their email address is and ask nicely. And I think I probably attached a cute picture of my daughter who is 2.5, and that sure doesn't hurt.
Right, the cute factor. So yeah, that was I was just going to ask your process because I know we have a bunch of writers in Stop Writing Alone that are always seeking out those freelancing opportunities. So once you were in the current, you sort of just said what other papers like is that the interesting thing to me is that in the first wave, it was them saying we want a grammar column.
Yeah, they
So
they
when
they, they sought it out specifically.
and so now when you reached out to other newspapers, you not only are pitching yourself, but you're also pitching the idea of a grammar column.
Yep. So it's not for everyone for sure. Some newspapers are owned by much bigger conglomerates that
Right. Yeah.
they only pull from their own pool of columnists or freelancers, and so most of the time they won't even respond to you. But my philosophy is ask until they say no. So
Yeah.
until an editor responds to me and says thanks but no thanks, that's the point at which I take them off my mailing list. But
Right.
I had found a Google Chrome add-on that is called Mail Merge for Chrome, and I think it's a paid thing, but basically you can create um, a mail merge within your Gmail
Uh-huh.
and email 100 people at a time with the same message. But you can
Ah,
customize their name or their
right.
newspaper name or whatever the thing is. And so what I did is I just looked up a bunch of editors and publishers and their email addresses and built this big old Google spreadsheet and then just kept plugging away. Won a couple of awards along the way. So um, whenever I needed to toot my own horn, I would do that, and sometimes that wins people over, and sometimes it doesn't. So
Yeah.
anyway, yeah,
No, that's pretty awesome. The whole mail merge thing. I love that because I can't imagine like how many you were able to get, whereas someone might be slogging around, copy and pasting an email and going through. So that's a huge help. But let's do a little brag session here. Let's talk about these awards. What kind of awards do we have on the shelf up for Curtis Honeycutt?
sure, thanks. So I got connected to a group called the National Society of Newspaper Columnists,
Oh, cool.
and now I'm on their board, and so um, you know, just just uh,
Full
trying
disclosure.
to make full disclosure. That's the word I was looking for. Full disclosure. I am on the board, and so I am a big cheerleader for the National Society of Newspaper Columnists. And the way they lured me in was through their annual column contest. So I entered my column in the humor category, and
Cool.
because I had appeared in so many newspapers by that point, um, it put me in the same category as like big papers like New York Times and
Wow.
Chicago Tribune and Washington Post. So anyway, I got an email that said you're a finalist for this award, and our annual conference is in Cincinnati this year. And so from Indianapolis, Cincinnati is a 2-hour drive. I said, well, I'd be dumb not to do that. So
Right.
took off work, drove to Cincinnati, and my column that year, this was 2 years ago, got third place in that category. So first and second place were from the Times and the Tribune, and I got third. And um,
Wow.
the honorable mention was to someone from the uh, Washington Post. So
Whoa.
yeah, and so here's the deal. So I'm proud of that. I'm very happy about that. But every year the judges panel rotates, and so what's good and what's funny, especially with humor, is incredibly subjective. And
Oh
so
yeah.
I'm guessing the panel that year was loaded up with nerds, and
Your
they appreciated the
people were
grammar.
there.
Yeah, the word nerds showed up in full force. So that's the award that I'm very proud of, and then I've also got connected with the Irma Bombeck Writers Workshop, and that's out
Okay.
of Dayton, and they named me their Humor Writer of the Month one
Oh,
one
that's
month
awesome.
last year. Yeah,
That's
toot
really,
my own
really
horn for a second. Thanks.
no, absolutely. That's what we're here for. We need to know all of the awesome. I'm all about celebrating every little victory that there is, and then when you get the really big ones, you have to. You just have to.
Well, and so you feel good about yourself, and then when the advanced copies of my book came, my wife took a video of me opening the books, and of course I had my kids next to me, and so my son, who's in kindergarten, grabs the first book off the top and he flips through it. And he goes, "Dad, there's no pictures in this whole book. Why would anyone want to read this?" I'm like, "Thanks, buddy. Thanks for bringing me back down to earth."
Right, exactly. Keeping it real with the kids. This is one of the great joys of parenting. You can never ever feel too awesome.
Keeps you humble for sure.
So so I guess let's just do a little chat about that and juggling the whole family life and writing, because I know some people struggle with finding the time of getting their writing done, whether it's the day job or the kids or just all the different responsibilities. What is it that you are just Sunday night, this is it. Dad's got to write, or do we wait till the kids sleep? What's the story there?
Oh man, well you know this. By the time the kids are asleep, all you want to do is just watch Parks and Rec on
Exactly.
Netflix and have a beer or something. Anyway,
Absolutely.
no. So my wife has a side hustle, and in her side hustle, it happens at a physical place at a certain time, and it's on the schedule.
Okay.
And so after a while, I was going, man, this isn't fair. My thing isn't the same as your thing. And she said, well, just put it on the schedule, dummy. And
Yeah.
so I said, oh, schedule it. And so I started twice a week. So this is in addition to writing my column on Sunday nights, but especially when I was writing the book, which is
Right.
figuring out what you want to keep, writing new stuff, editing, all that stuff. Not only did I take a couple of days off of work to where those full 8 hours were dedicated to book writing,
Right.
but I would physically write on our family calendar. Tuesday night I'm writing, and I would go somewhere else and I would write, and I wouldn't feel bad about it. I
Right.
think that's the big thing. So on the nights where my wife would have her thing, I put the kids to bed, and that makes sense. Well, in the same way, because I wrote it on the calendar, and this is my thing that I'm pursuing. She puts the kids to bed on those nights. So that doesn't mean it's easy. It's still hard, but I don't think most things worth doing are easy.
Yeah. No, I'm a big fan of the schedule. I kind of had that same epiphany. My husband didn't like come up. I want to like just make like a poster of your wife saying put it on the schedule, dummy, because that's like amazing.
She might not have said dummy. We say dummy a lot because we're 30 Rock fans, and
Yes. That's
Liz
why I
Lemon
love it.
and she called her boyfriend dummy, and so
Yes.
sometimes we call each other dummy, but it's all in love.
No, that's exactly how I heard it, Curtis. That's exactly how I heard it, and that's why it's wonderful. But yeah, that was my whole thing that I realized I had those same feelings like you're talking about, like this isn't fair. I'm not getting my time, and then I sort of like had that moment of, yeah, but it's not on any calendar anywhere, Nicole. Like, how are you expecting anyone to know you need this time if you don't say this is my time? So I think
Yeah,
that's really great advice.
as sorry, yeah, as unsexy as it sounds, you have to schedule your dream.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
absolutely have to.
Yeah, for sure. It's so much has changed for me since I've done that and said this is the time. Not only from the perspective of telling, my world around me and my family, but also like you said earlier, you can't wait for the inspiration to strike you. You have got to just show up. So putting it on the schedule is also that moment to say, I'm sitting down and I'm writing no matter what, because this is the time that I'm supposed to be sitting down and writing. So, how do you deal with those struggles of when it is your time is here, it's on the calendar, you're sitting there, and what do you do? What do you do if you didn't come to the computer with the idea already
Yeah.
bubbling?
So another resource that I think people need to have, whether it's a physical notebook or if it's
Mhm.
just you pull up your notes app, whenever you see or think about or hear something that is related to your thing that you're working on, jot it down, put a note down. So if it's, what am I going to write about this week? Well, I have a pool of ideas, whether or topics or subjects or words that people get confused often. I've got a pool of those in my notes app on my phone, and if I just totally run out, I'll just start riffing on something, and hopefully something good
Hopefully
comes out.
something sticks, right?
And it also helps in for having these columns that don't necessarily have to be time bound to exactly what's going on in the world.
Oh yeah.
I write ahead, and so I've got three in my back pocket at any time that um, don't don't have to be for any time. Lately, I've been tying grammar to coronavirus,
Right.
which is weird, but it's topical. It's everything that everyone's thinking about. So if
Right.
someone's
Whether we want to or not.
listening to this 6 months from now, and this isn't a thing anymore, then then don't listen to me and go party in your Corona-free world.
Right. Remember the times.
Yep.
So, I mean, that's actually an interesting segue. You are feeling the effects even in your book launch, and is it affecting the columns as well, this whole coronavirus situation?
Yes to all of the above. So
Mm,
we touched on earlier that newspapers aren't in a great state right now.
yeah.
Newspapers get their money from subscriptions and ads. So as soon as the stock market tanked a few weeks ago,
Yeah.
there were about 10 of my paid papers that immediately cut off all of their freelancers and columnists who were, not working
Oh,
in the
wow.
newsroom. And so um, that affected my monthly side income because this isn't something I do full time. So
Right.
that hurt right away, but also I'm not in those newspapers. And so right now I would love to be announcing to that audience,
Oh, yeah.
here's this book that's coming out. And so that didn't help either. Now, as
Yeah.
far as the book launch itself, I had lined up a series of 6 in-person events that I was doing there's a local franchise in Indianapolis called Books and Brews. And basically, it's a restaurant that brews their own beer and they have guest taps and things like that. And they also have used books and games for people to watch or to play and read or purchase while they're there. And they have great trivia nights and things like that. So I lined up 6 of these, 5 in central Indiana and 1 in Fort Wayne, which is a little farther north. And um, the newspapers that I was in around those stores were going to help me promote it. And so I had all this great free promotion working for me. And then all of a sudden, we're not going out and doing things like that. So as a result of that, I kind of freaked out for half a second and said,
Mm.
okay, I got to move on. I got to figure out what to do.
Yeah, and I
So
and I love that you've come up with a creative solution, because I think this is, especially as writers, we always have to be thinking on our feet and ready for anything. I mean, no one foresaw like this, but you have a really awesome solution here, I think. So let us know how are you making up. Meanwhile, I need to plan a road trip to Books and Brews. This sounds like the most amazing place ever. So
it's awesome. I think they go as far out to Oxford, Ohio, which is where the University of Miami, Ohio is. So they're slowly creeping out from Indianapolis.
okay, I will
So
keep my eyes out.
so instead of these in-person events, what I've decided to do, and we'll see how it goes. I think people are really being inventive right now, and if it doesn't work, then we just move on to the next thing. But what I'm going to be doing on Saturday, May 2nd at noon Eastern time is I'm doing a Facebook Live book launch party on my Facebook page, which is Curtis Honeycutt Writer. And during that book launch, what I'm going to be doing is, first of all, it's cool. I got a beer sponsor lined up for a virtual party. So it's basically just for me. So the good people at Books and Brews have provided beer. So I will be drinking beer. I will be doing giveaways of some books. I've got these word nerd stickers that I had made. And I also purchased some items from out of print books,
Oh my
or
god,
maybe it's
I
just called
love
out of
them.
print,
I love
as
them.
well as there's a place that makes candles called Frostbeard Studios. They're out of Minneapolis,
I
and
don't
so I
know.
bought some. They're like literary themed candles,
Oh
and
no,
they're
I have heard of them.
really cool.
Okay. Yes.
I think they're soy candles, so they burn for a long time. So anyway, I'm gonna be doing some giveaways,
Awesome.
and I'm going to be doing those giveaways about every hour. When I take my break, my wife and my son are going to come up and do the giveaways, because
Nice.
what I'm going to be doing starting at noon is reading the whole stinking book from cover to cover.
I
Now,
love
I'll probably skip the notes and the index because that's kind of boring. But I'm just thinking, okay, people are at home right now. They may or may not be looking for something to do. We all want to be entertained in some way. Why the heck not just read the whole book and see how it goes, and try to encourage people to buy their copy. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I think it's a fantastic idea. I mean, what do we typically do on a book tour anyway? We do our readings, we see everyone. This is an opportunity to connect with, a global audience, really, because if you're online, you can reach it's the ultimate book reading and the
Well,
ultimate one-day book tour. Get it all
I
in one
can
day.
personally guarantee that this will be um, the best virtual grammar party that anyone has ever attended.
There you go. Right. I'm with
Maybe
it.
also the only, right?
That's a footnote or parentheses. Oh my goodness, Curtis, this has been wonderful. I'm really excited about this. I'm going to have everything in the show notes for anybody listening so that we can go to the virtual book launch, support Curtis, get our copy of the book. And where can people go to find your book right now? Is there do you want them to go to your website or will you, I guess you'll have the links and everything during the virtual book launch as well.
Yeah, I'm still working to get all of the outlets, all the website outlets working, but definitely on May 1st, it will be on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, IndieBound, iBooks,
Cool.
Walmart, wherever online you buy your books, it should be there in paperback and ebook formats. And another thing that I've done for Central Indiana people is since I'm getting books shipped to me, I'm doing a local way of ordering where I'll just deliver the book to people's houses.
Oh my
Um,
goodness, cool.
just taking a page out of what restaurants and
Yeah,
coffee shops and retail is trying to do right now.
amazing. Really, really cool stuff. And just in general, where can people find you to follow you, support you, and all of that and connect with you?
Yeah, thanks. People can find me. They can find my website. It is curtishoneycutt.com. And then on Twitter and Instagram at Curtis Honeycutt. And then on Facebook, my page is Curtis Honeycutt Writer.
Okay. This has been really, really wonderful. Is there anything else that you would like to share with the Stop Writing Alone community?
Well, I would say that I'm I'm going to make a bold claim real quick here, and it's
This is
that
exciting.
good grammar can make everyone's lives better. So whether you want to get promoted at work, whether you want to get a date, um, this rising tide can lift all ships, including yours. How's
I
that?
love it. I love it. I think, you might be preaching to the choir with the writers, but you are giving us that incentive to, like you said, we want to keep our friends. So we don't want to do it publicly, but we will want to help out those friends to make sure that they are following along with the good grammar for the sake of an
Yeah. So
excellent
if you're
podcast.
already a word nerd, I think you'd appreciate this. But if you've got a 26-year-old son living in your basement and you want to passive aggressively let them know it's time for you to start winning at life, then maybe you buy a copy for them.
Absolutely right. This is the gift that writers give. I mean, we get it too. I this is another reference book for me to flip through, and I've written all over my copy already of just like notes of, because there are this silly little things that you forget, and you're like, and I love the ways that you explain them. They help them stick for me. But yeah, I can also see just like slipping it into someone's stocking or a birthday gift, or like we were talking about earlier, this is an excellent graduation gift. So I love it. I love it.
Yeah, well, and in general, if anyone wants to reach out, if anyone has like grammar questions or, hey, what's the right way to use this word, they can just email me, Curtis at curtishoneycutt.com. And not only will I respond to you, but I might use that as fodder for my next column. So it's a mutually beneficial thing. If anyone has a grammar question or conundrum, they can send me an email and I will answer the question for them.
I love it. That is fantastic. Thank you so much, Curtis. I wish you the best of luck with the book launch. We will be there. I will be cheering you on. And good luck. I hope the beer does enough to whet your palate for the numerous hours of reading. I want to like stay tuned to the end to see, how that transpires after so many hours of the beer sponsor.
We'll see how it goes. Yeah, thanks for having me, Nicole, and I hope that you hang in there as well.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. This is Nicole Rivera, and you're listening to the Stop Writing Alone podcast. Okay, so just a reminder, Curtis did say we could get the book wherever we order books online, but there's also a shop on his website, which is curtishoneycutt.com. That'll be in the show notes along with the link to Curtis's Facebook page, which is Curtis Honeycutt Writer, and that's where he's going to be doing his virtual launch party on May 2nd. So if you are listening to this episode before May 2nd, head on over to his Facebook page starting at noon Eastern time, and probably for about 4 to 5 hours after that, he will be reading his book, Good Grammar is the Life of the Party, live, and doing a number of giveaways. His Word Nerd stickers, stuff from Out of Print, which is a company I absolutely adore, and then the candles from, I do not remember the name of the company, but I did put links to all of the companies in the show notes. So wherever you're listening to this podcast, if you just see in the show description, or if you want to head on over to stopwritingalone.com and just look for episode 68, the interview with Curtis Honeycutt, you will see the blog post, which includes all of the show notes. Once again, as I say every single week, thank you so much for tuning in and listening. Thank you for all of your support here and online. I am going to be on YouTube this Friday with our latest writing prompt. It'll be our 1st of May. So I'm excited to be starting a brand new month. And that is, for anybody to try to write a short story, but especially helpful to those of you on this crazy journey with me of writing 52 stories in 52 weeks. I want you to have an awesome week and happy writing. I'll see you next week. Before you go, don't forget to subscribe to the Stop Writing Alone podcast wherever you're listening to this episode today. Then connect with us on Facebook at Stop Writing Alone Facebook page, or in the Stop Writing Alone with Nicole Rivera Facebook group. Check Instagram or Twitter, where I'm at NV_Rivera, to find links to our email newsletter. Happy writing. See you next week.